Hey, Paul Carcaterra, you Syracuse fans, you know, right? 1995 national championship at Syracuse, 1997 All-American midfielder, and now just doing a phenomenal job with ESPN as a lacrosse analyst, a Yorktown, New York native. Same hometown as Scotty Marr, Westchester County, and Paul joined ESPN in 2010. He joins us here on Big Board Sports on 104.5, the Team ESPN Radio in Albany this morning. Good morning, Paul.
How you doing?
We're great, man. You know, 4,700 tickets have already been sold for Saturday's game.
Wowzer.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. How many does that place sit?
8.
Yeah, a little more than 8.
A little more than 8.
What are you guys expecting?
Well, if it were going to be a beautiful Saturday night, I would say, you know what, even if it's not a beautiful Saturday night, I don't think it will be beautiful. I'm thinking they have a shot to get to 6. If they're sitting on a Tuesday at 4,700, and the other thing I don't know, and we're trying to figure out, are the students going to be there or not? It's going to be close because final exams and semester's ending. Some may be gone, some may still be here. But I think they have a fighting chance, Paul, to get to 6,000 for a lacrosse game. I think that's tremendous.
Without question. I mean, if they're at 47 on a Tuesday, I mean, there's going to be a bunch of tickets obviously sold the next few days and then the walk-ups. So
right.
That's awesome. I think it's the perfect size venue. I called the game there last week. I've been up there a bunch. It's made for lacrosse in terms of just the setting and the seating and everything.
So do you give UAlbany, I mean, look, they lost to Syracuse by a goal beginning of the year in the closing seconds. They lost to Maryland by 1 at Casey Stadium. Can they beat North Carolina?
Definitely. I mean, look, North Carolina is a tricky matchup. They're 8-7. You look at their record, you say, oh, wow, Albany's 14-2. But North Carolina can play with anyone in the nation. They won the ACC tournament, which is with the Big Ten. It's the premier leagues in college lacrosse. They have a bunch of studs from the championship team a year ago. Got a guy like Chris Cloutier, scored 14 goals in 2 games in the semis and finals last year, championship MVP. He's back for his junior year. Luke Goldstock, who's actually an Albany kid,
yep.
in Niskayuna. He's one of their better players as well. Broke a school record 2 years ago as a sophomore for goals in the season. So they have some big-time players for sure. Don't have the midfield depth that they had a year ago. But I look at Albany. I mean, Albany got totally hosed, if you ask me. They're an RPI 3, coaches poll 4 or 5 this week. Don't have it off the top of my head, but I know it's in that range. I just don't think the NCAA did Albany any justice in regards to giving them an 8 and then the matchup to boot. If they were an 8 and they were playing a Johns Hopkins team, maybe that isn't coming into the tournament as hot as a North Carolina. I think that would be an easier pill to swallow. But at the end of the day, Albany can play with any team in the country. They have a funky style, really fun to watch. They play end-to-end. They use their midfielders as two-way guys where a lot of teams play specialists. What that does is just creates a lot of mismatches in transition, and their offensive guys who start on the defensive ends can feast on that. So I love watching this team. I love Scotty Marr's approach to coaching the game of lacrosse. They're an easy team to root for. Certainly have a tough opponent on Saturday night, but it's going to be a killer game. How's the face-off look? You know, that's always the key right there, and it's been pretty darn good for UAlbany. But now this is a little step up here. This is not a Merrick East opponent. Yeah, T.D. Erlin is one of the tops statistically in the country. The freshman, he's facing off over 70%. That is, a top 3 face-off type player in the country. Anytime you can get over 55, you're having a good year. So when you're hovering around 70, you're getting it done. The key thing here is TD is a really tough kid. He's a state finalist as a wrestler in the state of New York. Really scraps. I think in regards to this matchup with Stephen Kelly from North Carolina, TD has to win the clamp, scoop it, and get it to himself. North Carolina and Stephen Kelly do really well when it's a scrum and those second efforts for ground ball. So when you're watching the game, if TD's winning it to himself, that's a strong indication that he's going to have a good night. If it's like a 50-50 ball where these two guys are scrumming it up, North Carolina is really good in that aspect.
Hey, Paul, Chris Honorato up here with Roger as well. And by the way, you can find Paul on Twitter, just simply at Paul Carcaterra. Easy.
Good luck spelling that name.
People can sound it out. I have faith in the American people to be able to sound that one out, Paul. At the beginning of the year, we had people not inside the program, but very close to it, tell us that this might be the best UAlbany team Scott Morris had. And I immediately thought, you have to be crazy, because you had Miles Thompson and Lyle Thompson, who shared the Tewaaraton Award. Then you had Lyle win it on his own. How could this team be better? But, Paul, they might be. And look, I'm not going to hold Saturday's game against them whichever way it goes. This team has been really impressive. How is it possible that this group might be better than one Scotty Mars had in the past?
I think unequivocally it is. They don't have – look, Lyle Thompson is a once-in-a-generation player. I mean, I've been following this game pretty religiously since I was 10 years old, and a couple years ago I just put together the Mount Rushmore of college lacrosse players, and he made it along with Gary Gate, Mikey Powell from Syracuse, both of those guys, and Dave Petramala from Johns Hopkins. So he's a top 4 player in the modern game, and in my mind, no doubt. However, when Lyle was playing, when Miles was playing, they would excite us and do some things that no one else was doing. But it could take 5-6 minutes at a clip to have them get the ball again. T.D. Erlin, like I said, is one of the best face-off guys in the country. The way that Albany plays and their strike-fast ability, you jam it down a team's throat by momentum and allowing TD to win a face-off and giving it to that offense again. I couldn't imagine if Lyle and Miles played with TD. But the other aspect, too, where they're way better is defense. This is his best defense I've seen over his 17 years. Statistically, they're number 1 in the nation on man-down defense. So when the other team has a man advantage in a power play, Albany can lock it down. J.D. Colarusso has been really good in the goal. I just think if you look at the layers of a team, they check all those boxes where, you know, some of those teams with Lyle and Miles, offense off the charts, best offense, yes. Guys that could do some things that no one else could do, yes, I get it all. But when you're not winning draws and when another team is controlling tempo, you don't control the outcome of a game. If you're Lyle Thompson, Gary Gate, or Mikey Powell, it doesn't matter. So I just think they do things with more depth. They do things with a little more strategy because they can now, because they have the ball. And it freshens up their D, too. So think about it. When they weren't running face-offs and Lyle and Miles were exciting us with all these crazy goals and this quick strike ability, when they lose a face-off after that, their defense was on the field for so much of the game, and it just put too much pressure on them.
We're talking with ESPN lacrosse analyst Paul Carcaterra. And, of course, the Syracuse fans loving 1995 and the national championship and all of that. But in general, Paul, how much has this sport grown? I mean, we see it here in the capital region. We were just talking about it earlier about, you know, young kids now, 5, 6, 7 years old. Well, I'm a baseball guy, and my son plays baseball, and I'm not converting him. I'm telling you that right now. That's not going to happen. I'm a baseball guy, die hard. That's what I did. But I can see it changing. Do you see this, and what are the reasons for it?
Look, man, when you watch baseball, it's 9 guys on a field waiting for a ball to be hit for them, and you know, little Johnny in the outfield in the little league picking grass, right? Because he hasn't seen the ball in 2 hours. Lacrosse, it's the fastest growing team sport in the nation, and I think the reason being is just the excitement. It's a combination of all the sports: the hand-eye coordination of hockey, it's the physicality of football, it's the endurance of soccer. And the running ability, it's really caught on. The game has completely changed. I played in the mid to late 90s at Syracuse, and all the good teams and rosters were just littered with East Coast kids, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast kids, and that was it. You look at a roster now, I mean, we have just an incredible sample size of what's happening in the sport, and I say that from the standpoint that, you know, there's great kids from California. There's been Tewaaraton winners, National Players of the Year from the state of Oregon. So some of the best players have come from Texas and Florida. Sergio Salcido was the ACC Player of the Year, a kid from Syracuse, and played his high school ball in Florida. That never would have happened in the mid-'90s. So I just think it's not just what we're seeing on the East Coast. This is a growth nationally, and like I said, it's the fastest growing team sport in the nation. And I just think people love the excitement. You know, it's so fast paced. Some people that don't know the sport struggle to watch it on TV because the ball moves really fast, a lot like hockey. And you hear people say all the time in hockey, like when you go to a hockey game, it's amazing. It's the best experience possible. And you watch on TV, it's a lot of fun and great, but the ball moves a little too fast. So for me to watch a lacrosse game, it's amazing on TV. But for someone who doesn't know the sport as well as me or some other people who follow it, it could be hard to translate it on TV as if you were at the game, say like on a Saturday night when Albany plays Carolina.
Paul, one more for me, and then Chris has one more. In this game on Saturday, as a fan going out to watch, or you're watching it on TV, or whatever you're doing, UAlbany scored, 20 goals? 20 of them against Binghamton in the championship, Merrick East. They're not getting 20 on Carolina, are they?
They're not going to get 20, but, this could be one of these crazy games where it's like 15-14.
Okay.
Both teams love to get up and down. Like, Carolina loves to get up and down, too. There's going to be a lot of defense played. But like I said earlier, when I first got on the call with you guys, the funky style of Albany can really put pressure on teams because the midfield position in lacrosse, where guys traditionally play both ends, has kind of changed over the years, where you have your specialists, you have your defensive midfielders, and you have your offensive midfielders. Albany's midfielders truly, more than any team in the country, are two-way guys that play both ends. So when a guy starts his shift on defense, the opposing team's offensive mid, he's always looking to get off, just like in hockey, to bring their defender on. Albany doesn't have to do that. So, it's amazing how many transition opportunities they get with guys like Kyle McClancy and Adam Osika. They'll put a lot of pressure on a team just because of their style.
McClancy is a guy that Scotty Marr has been championing this year for All-American status, and he should just get it. Yeah. He should just get it for the hair, don't you think?
Hey, man, you got some time, and our listeners too. Go on the Albany University of Albany Sports homepage and go to their lacrosse roster and look at the headshots. They're amazing. Amazing. Kyle McClancy's he's par for the course. There's some dudes who really bring it.
One guy who's got great hair too, Paul. This will lead right into this question, and I'm hoping you'll share the story with us. Roger, who's a play-by-play guy, knows blowouts are dangerous if you don't have some material built up to fill time. But you told a great story towards the end of Saturday's game, and I'm hoping you'll share it with our listeners here this morning who didn't get to see the game. The connection between your son and Zach Ornstein, who plays for UAlbany, who is a face-off specialist in his own right.
Yeah, Zach was the America East all-rookie team member at Face-Off last year. Then T.D. Erlin came in and has taken a lot of his reps. But I did a piece in the beginning of April on Scott Marr and Connor Fields for our air. And I brought my two kids and my wife up, too. They had spring break that week, so they came to work with Dad. But Scott Marr is a close friend of mine from home. We grew up in the same town. We've had an amazing relationship for decades. So he's always been open with me and his team and bringing my family around too. And my little guy, Grayson, who's 9, has some special needs. He's a resource student back home and really struggles in school academically. He's got some language and speech and processing issues. But just a wonderful, wonderful kid who loves extreme sports, good snowboarder, what have you. But make a long story short, when he was at practice, Zach was doing some face-offs on the side, and Zach's just an amazing kid, New Jersey kid. He's got that full mane of hair, and really just embraced Grayson. And Grayson automatically clung to Zach and just loved Zach. Was talking about him nonstop that day. And when we got home, 2 or 3 days later, I came down into the kitchen and my son drew this really cool picture of Zach, and it was this headshot from the Albany website. And what we did on air is we brought that picture. My son was in attendance at the game as well on Saturday, so camera showed him when Zach got on the field late in the fourth quarter. My son Grayson was at the edge of his seat. Gray ate dinner with Zach Friday night before the game, and the rest of the team. It was just a really cool opportunity for my little guy because he struggles in some aspects of life, and Zach and the rest of the team just embraced him, and he's got this little kid now that all he wants to see is Albany play lacrosse. And regardless of how many reps Zach gets, if you ask my son who's the best player in college lacrosse, he would say Zach.
That's a great story.
I love that, man.
That
I
is
love
a great story and a good one. And
there's a lot of great role models out there, guys, man.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times we hear about athletes and a lot of the negative things. Let me tell you, man, when you're around college sports like I am, college football with the ESPN, I travel all across the country, and then for the lacrosse, which is a sport that's part of my DNA. There's amazing role models for these kids out there. That team, if you're an Albany resident, if you're around the university, that is a team that is just full of role models. They do things the right way.
Paul Carcaterra,
Very cool.
You're the best, man. We appreciate a few minutes. We'll look forward to seeing you up here over the weekend.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.